All right, everybody. So now we have a very interesting session on the beautiful city, which is Calcutta. That is Calcutta Chronicles. And Calcutta, the muse, in many a story, plays an eternal role in the words of Nandita and Tony and Maitri Chaudhary. Hear them discuss about the city and how it influences their writing. But before that, let's just give an introduction to all three of them. Can we clap for them, first of all, everybody? Can we hear it for Namita Bose, who is a fiction writer, poet, and book reviewer, who occasionally writes articles on current events, films, and politics. She lives in Bangalore with her two daughters, two cats, and three dogs. Tony, other than taking wonderful selfies, that is, spends his formative years in Calcutta. The smells, taste, and sound of the of the grand dame of the British colonial empire finds his way into his stories. He's the author of the best-selling historical fiction, The Autograph Seeker. He's a novelist, media specialist, passionate speaker, and of course, an autograph seeker. Can we clap for him? We've also got Maitreyi Chaudhary, who's a Bangalore-based poet and writer. She has 4 books to her credit: The Hungry List, The One Dozen Hassan, Azizul Haq, Uttam Kumar and Suchitra Sen, Bengali cinema's first couple, and where even the present is ancient, that is Banaras, which is a beautiful city. She teaches poetry and design at NIFT Bangalore. And without any further ado, let's get them to speak about Calcutta Chronicles. Can you clap for them? One second.
Thank you. Thanks to those of you who have come in. It's such a lovely change to be out here in real time instead of having a Zoom call again. So, as the title of the session is Calcutta Chronicles, you can guess that this session will largely be about Kolkata. And since all three of us have written books which or articles or whatever that have a base perhaps in Calcutta and flesh out characters from that city, so we'll be discussing more and more of that. If you note, I mentioned Calcutta and not Kolkata because for most old-time Calcuttans, it still remains Calcutta. And the new name of Kolkata hasn't still perhaps, sunk in as much. But, as the saying goes, there's a saying which goes like this, you can take a Calcuttan out of Calcutta, but you can't take Calcutta out of the Calcutta. So much as it sounds like a tongue twister, it is a reality. And I think the same goes for several other cities like Bombay or Chennai, places like that where, you've had solid literature. Sometimes you've had films coming out of, these places because these places have acted as a muse to a lot of the filmmakers or the writers. So, incidentally, all three of us have works based out of Calcutta or in Calcutta. So I'd like to, start off by asking the obvious question to both of them that, since Calcutta plays an important role in the psyche of us as individuals, do you think, it sometimes, also becomes like a character in your book or, influences other characters? What do you think? Nandita, would you like to go?
So let me begin with why Kolkata, why Calcutta. There was this notion of, the Indian empire, so to say, under the British rule, being divided into presidencies. And the Bengal presidency stretched up to Pakistan. The next presidency was Sindh. So up to Pakistan, right across UP, Punjab, Haryana, etc., was the Bengal presidency. Till 1911, Calcutta was the capital of India. It's only after that that it shifted to New Delhi. What this means historically is that the very best of Indian civilization was concentrated in Kolkata in those times. Places that we love are basically our emotional motherland. Even the mention of the name sometimes, gives us this tug almost like an umbilical cord. So yes, all my stories, what I write about them, are steeped in what I have seen and perceived and tried to make sense of in Kolkata. So one thing that I have actually discussed with, with a lot of people who'd asked me about, my novels in general, is that, the river makes an appearance. So I come from another city. I've lived and grown up in another city, which is on the banks of a river, but we never see the river that often. Whereas in Kolkata, the river is it's a living presence. You can't, if you fly in, so nothing can be done about it. But if you go by train, you have to cross the Howrah Bridge to come into the city. So the river keeps making an appearance in my stories very often, and the Hooghly River. And in one of my stories, which is Tread Softly, I picked some small nuance which is very typical of Kolkata, that this family actually has a flock of cats that nobody knows where they come from. They just turn up at mealtime, some stay over, some go away. And this is a very typical Kolkata thing to happen. Now, these tiny nuances in my story are, they are meant to convey something which to a reader, it does make sense, but to somebody who has experienced it as well, it adds, a special layer. At this point, let me tell you also what I write. In India, it's expected that if you're a good writer, you're writing arcane, very, very literary, weird books. But what I like to write about are, our stories. So I basically write love stories, which make sense for all age groups and everybody. And I place them in the culture that I'm most comfortable with. So yeah, so that's why. So the story of the cats also plays out its own love story, whereas another love story is unfurling. Thank you.
Right. Tony, what about you?
The question was, how does Calcutta play a character in your
Yeah,
book?
I mean, Tony has, of course, you've done a large part of your education in Kolkata. He's an alumni of St. Xavier's, and it's a very strong influence on you, right? So, how does it? And later on, of course, you shifted to Bangalore, but you're originally from Kerala and all of that. But in spite of that, you chose to write a book which is based out of Kolkata, and his book is takes a time lapse. There are two, one in the contemporary scene and the one in the past. So how would you say that Kolkata plays a strong muse maybe in your book?
Right. Calcutta, see, I lived in a time when Mother Teresa walked the earth. When there was a World Cup held in Eden Gardens where England versus Australia played, yeah, and the whole city was supporting Australia because we were still fresh out of the British rule having come to an end back then. At a time when things were far more simpler, and obviously it's an impressionable age. And therefore, the city almost becomes an extended family. And therefore, you can't help but make that as part of your book. Because the roads that are there, the walk from Xavier's back home, the people that you came encountered with, those little things that were part of your dinner discussions. It is aged in your mind forever, so it won't go away.
Sense, Calcutta also kind of is very, there's a saying in Hindi, "Havi ho jati hai," no, aapke upar. It doesn't like Bangalore, Bangaloreans, as all of us are Bangaloreans, you see, it just lets you be. But Kolkata is not like that, it's very passionate in that sense,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So you can't ignore it.
Right, and therefore it becomes a character by itself because it's set there. A lot of it is, of course, Park Street, which is an integral part of Calcutta. It's set there, and therefore it becomes a character of its own. So two things, at least in my book, Calcutta and the school called St. Xavier's Collegiate School.
Right.
So both are Calcutta itself.
But you've also written about the theatre part of
Absolutely. So the book of mine has two timelines going parallel. One is India, or rather Calcutta, in the 1800s, where there used to be this theatre called the Sans Souci Theatre. Very famous. It had this actress called Esther Leach. People wanted to date her and take her out, and very, very popular. One day, while she's performing, her dress catches fire and she burns on stage. A lot of people in Calcutta know that. That there was there was a actress called Sansusi, theater called Sansusi, and an actress called Esther Leach. But not many knew that she had a daughter, Alice Anderson, who actually was on stage, and with her in the play Othello, and with her was a Bengali native, Babu Bushtotom Addo. Instead of getting a British soldier and painting his face black, remember this is the height of British prejudice in the 1800s. Instead of getting a British officer and painting his face black, they get this local nigger, Babu Bushtotom Addo. Together they put this play up. It becomes a hit, controversial. In fact, the first time on stage it's almost banned. Sometimes I think we have gone back to the old ages, even now. It gets banned. But then things work out, but then no one knows what happened to the two of them. What I know is that theatre finally becomes St. Xavier's School and College, which is one of the oldest institutions in Calcutta. When you discover a story like that, and then you get this schoolboy and the girl who can't speak to discover the story.
Did you go and try to discover small nooks and corners in St. Xavier's from the theatre?
In fact, St. Xavier's, when it celebrated its 125th anniversary, they came out with a postal stamp and a postal, it's called a first day cover. And that's when I saw a structure which did not look like the school I'm going to. It was a Sanskrit theatre, and that's where I got the reference from. But you're bang on. In fact, at some point, I'm going to ask you also what you did with your book. But yes, when you're writing with memory, you tend to go back and explore those symmetries and the roads and the people and the structures. And when you see that, and the place where you assume your character lived, which is very near Xavier's, he walked up. In fact, the Stephen Court burned down. So I entered a burned down structure to see what my character must have possibly lived there. Yeah, you're right.
Nandita Di, so you are a Bengali who has written books, where your books or characters in the books or, sequences and scenes in the books are influenced somewhat by Calcutta. But you have a sort of outside influence, perspective, let's say, if not influence, perspective, where you can see from a distance, So do you think that helps you? Unlike Tony, I mean, who's not a Bengali, but he was, educated in Calcutta, and he writes about Calcutta, but you have an outsider's perspective. So do you think, it kind of helps you or in any way?
I won't know whether it helps or not, but I can tell you, I can trace my history. So our family comes from Dhaka and an adjoining district called Faridpur. In the 1900s, both my grandparents both sets of grandparents moved out. So one said that the doctor, who's my mother's father, worked in tea gardens in Assam as a doctor. And then he moved to, a place called United Provinces, which we now know as Uttar Pradesh. And my father's father worked in Gaya, so we lived in Gaya for a very long time. I've never visited Gaya, but my father has lived in Gaya for a very long time. So Kolkata is basically, so we are a family of migrants. My father traveled a lot around India in the Air Force, and when he finally settled down, he took a job with the Tatars, and I grew up in Jamshedpur. So I have never been a Calcutta native. I have only gone there often enough to our family home, which was our later family home. It was our displaced family home when the family from Gaya went to Kolkata. I always went as an outsider. I came from a very orderly, sparse, steel city. And the moment we stepped off Howrah Bridge, we were just plunged into chaos because Kolkata is just layers and layers and layers of things happening. And it is humongous in size and in population and in depth and in density. So for me, it was like, my senses just sort of took a spin and couldn't accept what was happening. Now, let me tell you, one of the things that really bugs me, and whenever I'm on Twitter, I keep seeing people sort of making, vague claims. But one claim that comes often is some Bengali piping up and saying that the only biryani in India worth eating is the Kolkata biryani. I'm sorry, that's not true. You have not developed the taste to embrace the other 500 types of biryanis in India. So I feel, because I would take a well-cooked Hyderabadi biryani or even a Bellary biryani over, a badly cooked Kolkata biryani. So that false equivalent that if it is from Kolkata, that is only great, is something that's very unique to people who have not had a cosmopolitan experience, which my family has had. So I have, almost like a child night, nose pressed against the glass kind of a look. But there is a glass. I do have a lens through which I experience Kolkata, and I don't see it only for its positives. There are bridges falling down, there are horrendous politics, the hospitals should be banned in Kolkata. They are in such a bad state. So I don't have this rosy glasses saying that, oh, Kolkata is great. But yes, there are certain elements of Kolkata that are beautiful. And, I also want to celebrate those things as well. And that's what I write about. So,
I'll have to take it from Nandita Di, and I want to narrate an anecdote over here. What she says about the outsiders thing, because as an outsider, and especially as a Bengali, who resides outside Kolkata, there's this snootiness about Calcuttans that I completely agree about. And I think
I want to come in over here.
and Tony will, of course, have a different view. But, let me narrate a small anecdote. So I was born and brought up in Assam. And, one story that, we heard, and it was a hilarious story. So Homen Borgohain is an intellectual from Assam, and he once narrated a story saying he was on a train and there was this lady, sitting opposite to him, who, he understood once he started talking to her, she was from Kolkata. So they were both going from somewhere to Kolkata. I don't really recollect. So the lady asked him, are you going to Kolkata? He said, yeah, I'm going to receive an award that Vishwa Bharati was giving to him. So she was immediately a little wary, So she says, oh, you're getting an award from Vishwa Bharati. So about what is this award? She sounded very suspicious. So he said, I have translated certain things from Tagore into Assamese, and that's why they're giving me the award. It was, and he, writes, Homen Borgohain later writes, it was as if the lady heaved a sigh of relief. Oh, you have written about Tagore. That's, her connotation was, okay, that's why you're receiving the award. So in his essay, he later on, muses, and later it's a very funnily, writes it that this could be expected only from Bengalis, because, I had heard in a speech also, Bengalis have a habit of taking the burden of the entire literary universe on their, fragile shoulders, thinking that, there cannot be anyone beyond them. So I'm sure Tony has a contradictory opinion to that, but that is something, there's a term called Probashi Bengalis, which Nandita Di and me also are. My book is also incidentally, written from that distance of being away from Kolkata and looking at the Calcuttans. So we, people like us, we tend to think it gives us perspective. But Tony, tell us.
If my friends are watching, guys, Shiraz Biryani and Arsalan Rock from Calcutta.
Yeah. How could we not have a discussion of food
when it rocks, and two that of course it's all depends on the experience that we have. Calcutta is a place of contradiction, and let me tell you, I like those intellectual talks that you have when you're in that the tram. Oshchojo, I'm surprised there's English and Bengali coming in simultaneously, almost integrated. Okay, when I was in class 8, Calcutta was celebrating its 300 years. I think Job Chanok had come, etc., etc. There was an exhibition held, and it was a big deal for us. We celebrated it well. Guess what the government of West Bengal did that year? The man, and since you mentioned Dhaka, the man who divided Bengal into East Bengal, West Bengal, his granddaughter, that means Lord Curzon's granddaughter, was called as a guest of honor for the 300 years of celebration. There was controversy. I remember there were discussions around the table. What is this? How can you get Curzon's daughter or granddaughter come to the man who divided? And this chief minister, Jyoti Basu, who was a Zavarian, by the way,
Oh,
happens, so what? Those are past. Let it go. Let her come. It was so beautifully done, and no one even spoke about it. There was a time I remember. This is perhaps what second or third standard. Pope John Paul comes to Calcutta. Now he wants to go to Mother Teresa's home and do his bit, etc., etc. And the government of West Bengal says, okay, I think it's worthwhile sponsoring this entire thing. But people said, but he is a religious leader and you're a communist party. So they said, correct, that's true. How do we solve that? Then what they did was, but remember, Pope is maybe a religious leader, but he's also the head of a state. Vatican is a country by itself. And therefore, there's no harm in, opening up the Maidan and having a large mass. So this is entire mass, perhaps Calcutta's biggest mass ever, sponsored by the government of West Bengal for that to happen. Now, these things can happen only there. And I'm saying all this because our times have changed. There are new rules going on right now where the stuff that you and I had yesterday, I don't think we can even talk about it. But that is the Calcutta that I grew up in, which was open to different experiences. Of course, there would be like crazy things. There would be absolutely horrendous violence. That's all part of it. But there was a soul, and it is not just the leaders, it's the people who are open to experiences which were new. Of course, they love the Tagore. And by the way, Tagore also is from Xavier's. Yeah.
So on that note, why don't you read a little excerpt from your book?
Oh, all right. You guys want to hear it?
Yeah, of
All right.
course.
All right.
Show them the book so that they can go and later on buy it.
Yeah. This
This is the book. It's available downstairs. Please go and buy it if you want to.
It's called The Autograph Seeker. Okay, this is set in the Eden Gardens. It's one of the biggest stadiums in Calcutta. You enter that place, you get scared. You're a child and you enter it. The place is so huge, and if it's full of people, it scares the living daylights out of you. It's a part from there. Here it goes. It was a Monday, but I was not going to school. Appachan had received 2 complimentary tickets to an India versus West Indies match. I was going to watch my first live cricket match at a cricket colosseum called the Eden Gardens. How lucky was I? Amma had particularly come to see the batting of the man who made her weak in the knees, her Chika, her Krishnamachari Shrikant. Tragically for her, India was fielding and at the pitch, batting for what seemed like forever, was a tall, dark man with thick glasses. He had drooping shoulders and a swagger in his walk. Clive Lloyd, captain of the West Indian team. Pointing at the scoreboard, my mother informed me, look, he is now on 92, 8 more runs, and he will score a century. Apart from the big 92 on the scoreboard, I noticed something strange. The sun was at its peak, and the West Indian captain took a stance to face the next delivery. But the stadium was shining. Bright lights were seen from the stands where the spectators sat. I looked at Amma because I couldn't understand what was going on. Mirrors, said Amma. They are shining mirrors at the batsman to distract him from scoring his 100. Hundreds of mirrors gleamed as the sun bounced off them, redirected to the batsman's face. It did not have any effect on West Indies captain, though, who went right ahead and scored his century. The spectators immediately set aside the mirrors and gave him a loud applause. Clive Lloyd, at the end of the innings, remained not out at 161. I'll stop it over here. I think this is the part. So this is Calcutta. They will distract you, but if you win, they will stand up and applaud for you.
Yeah. Nandidati, why don't you also read a little bit?
Okay, so but be warned, it's a love story. So if anybody objects to love stories, please bear with me. On the way back, Sid suggests stopping for coffee. By now, I am both hungry and irritable. Outside, too many birds are singing of things I do not want to know. The offbeat cafe is almost deserted, and we have the reassuring shade of the garden all to ourselves. He drops his question with the finesse of a bolt from the blue. How public do you think we should go about our love affair? Excuse me? My voice is more a polite squawk now. For once, Sid looks a little uncomfortable, but not as uncomfortable as this is making me. Yet his voice remains bland, as if this conversation is an extension of one of his business conferences. Through this documentary, a large chunk of our lives will be under close scrutiny. That bit I had not anticipated until the directors began to speak of interviews. I have no qualm saying it like it is. That may not be the same for a woman. Just wondered whether it would be better to come clean, though I'm also open to keeping certain things private. There are times you can strangle a man, but instead you sit replying to his absurdity in the calmest voice. Firstly, what love affair? Just tell them you're engaged to Monica, and I can quite truthfully tell them I have never been involved with a man. His response is quick, as if he's required to do everything to defend the honor of the woman he loves. In a way, that made me angrier. There is no question of dragging Monica into all of this. And honestly, Disha, it may have been ill-timed, short-lived, and a bloody mistake, but it damn well did happen. My reply is stymied by the arrival of fragrant coffee mugs. I sit back stiffly while I am served. He takes a few deep sips while I want to disengage from everything. This place, this topic, this irritant of a man. It shocks me how bitter I sound. I am not the first young woman who lost her head and had sex with a dishy rock star. If you wish to specifically brag about it, you have my permission to do so. Incidentally, my book Everglow is about rock music. Thank you.
Nandita, other than the excerpt that you read, your book has a lot of influence of music in it, and it's also showcases a joint family, right? If I'm right.
Yes.
So these are also kind of symptomatic of Kolkata in certain ways. So was that somewhere in the background in your mind, or but also other than the Kolkata influence of joint family or music, just tell us a little bit about how the music part especially came about, because when I was reading parts of it, I was really surprised by her knowledge of music that she, and those of you who are interested in music especially will really like the book. It's got music in great depth in it. So just tell us a little bit about that.
I think my family's lasting sorrow is that I did not learn Robindra Sangeet. And, that was something like I kind of sort of said, I will do a lot of things you say, but this is where I draw the line. So no Robindra Sangeet.
Nandita, every Bengali family believes there's a Kishore Kumar born in the family.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a dream in every Bengali family.
And I instead went and enrolled for a classical music class without realizing that my mother, whose family is from United Provinces, had heard a lot of Baijis. The women who were considered, fallen women and who sang and danced for clients. And my mother was horrified. So she would say, when we are having guests, please don't open your mouth and please don't do riyaz, because she felt that that was a kind of music that, decent women didn't sing. But I really did have a passion for it. Like at one point I felt that, I would be, the next superstar on the classical music horizon. Unfortunately, reality catches up with you. And, my brilliant career was just cut short by, by fate maybe. But that whole thing about classical music still stayed with me. And I want to write the love stories that I can live, that I can, live through. My next love was introduced to me by my husband, and that was rock music. And, it was playing in our house 24/7. In fact, when we lived in Bombay, our neighbors started this rumor that, we had special MTV in our house because there was rock music playing in the house from morning to night. So I wanted to marry these two things. And so Sid is, this dishy rock guitarist, and Disha, and there are many nuances because Sid has a British mom, she lives in Kolkata. He's like this quintessential Kolkata boy, with a very, very Western upbringing. Whereas Disha, she comes to live in his house as his father's ward. And she has lived in a smaller town. And, there is this difference in accepting her, particularly by the family, because she is not as, polished or as, exposed, as they call it, as them. And Disha is a classical musician. And so while I'm weaving their love story together, I'm also weaving music together. And my mission is that from all the classification and all the noise, a certain kind of melody emerges. Just like, if you go to the genesis of rock, it's actually jazz. And you go from the genesis of what we know as, Indian music today, it's classical music, and both of them are khayal. Khayal in the sense that you have to imagine it. You have to imagine jazz and you have to imagine, Indian Hindustani classical music. So I wove that. And while I was doing this, I also wanted to show how beyond this very Western persona of Sid and, their new vocalist who is Disha, with very different music styles, the heart wants what the heart wants. And it wants to love, and it wants to be loved by somebody they love. And, so that's kind of my, the story. I have written a story that I have lived through. I mean, I didn't fall in love with a Dishi rock guitarist, unfortunately. I did fangirl. If anybody gave me the invite, I would very, very happily be part of their, troupe. There's a term for it, which old age has made me forget, but, and there are these groupie, that's the term. You have rock stars have groupies. So if my family did not really intervene, I could have just gone off with rock bands as a groupie because I was that crazy. But these experiences that I have felt, I have known, have gone into my book. How Kolkata, because Kolkata also has a gharana of music. There is this place called Dover Lane, which is, the epicenter of the best classical music in India that is showcased in the last week of December or the first week of January. Rock music, my first ever concert was by Shiva. If you guys look up YouTube, you will get to see their music. Amazing band. I was just 16 and I fell in love with every member of the band as they were playing on stage. Obviously, they have no idea who I am, but that's how it is. And Everglow.
Calcutta actually had one of the best rock,
yes.
music scenes.
The rock culture in India, actually, if you go to Wikipedia, it doesn't say that at all. But we did have a singer called Pam Crane who used to, Usha Uthup, for example.
And also the finest night scene in Kolkata musically.
Yes.
It was just fantastic.
It was the city that married these two things, which I did not know then, but these two also organically married in me, So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly. That's so refreshing to hear this musical part of, writing as well as blending of the two things coming together. Tony, one thing I've always, I really wanted to ask you since yesterday I've been meaning to, ask you this is, some of the Maharathis of literature, have spoken about Kolkata, have written about Kolkata, and there are innumerous books about Kolkata or set in Kolkata, just like they are set in Bombay also. So while you were writing this book, based out of Kolkata, did you have any kind of, trepidation that, oh my God, I'm writing another book, which is based out of Kolkata, will it be compared to other great books? And especially since, it's one of your first outings as of now. So were you, was it a thing that you ever thought of?
Not one bit. I never knew I'll land up one day over here sitting at the Bangalore Festival, talking to you wonderful people who risked your lives to come here and watch us speak. Because when you write for the first time, you're like a kid, Hope that two friends of yours reads it and says, okay, but good, you wrote a book. That was the thought.
Let me just cut you. You write for the 20th time, it's the same feeling.
Absolutely. But the first time is that much more easier because you have no benchmarks. You write for yourself, and that's how, in case any of you want to write a book, remember, you write for yourself. If that is there, all the truths come in. And then if things work out, great. Go ahead, applaud. Audience, that's the crowd that we have. but yeah, you wrote for kind of for yourself. The part about whether 10 people the academicians will have a problem with that, why should they? If I'm writing on my family and someone comes and tells, but that's not true. It's my family. I know my family more because I have lived it. I've lived those moments. I've been there. I was at a time.
No, what I actually meant was that, that since there have been so many, and there have been quite a number of very good books, based out of Kolkata, were you ever, sort of even try, comparing in your head, I mean, that, do I, have to write like Amit
No
Chaudhary?
pressures.
Do I have to write
No,
like
no, no,
this?
no, no pressures. No pressures whatsoever. But yeah, after I wrote it, I began to believe that I've hit on something good, which is why the organizer of this festival is Shiny Anthony. So I kind of chased her down. I said, Shiny, I've written this book. She said, oh no, please, some other novice writer. But she liked it. Of course, it moved forward from there. But because perhaps there were universal truths, it held its ground. It traveled so far. It went for the Geo Mami Film Festival, which is Virtu Screen. You get to talk to these content creators and talk to them and pitch your ideas. And that's when the salesman in me, I ran a radio station in Bangalore. So that ultimately in the end, somewhere that salesman in me came and said, you know what, this is the book, this is the idea. But I had no pressure whatsoever of what people will think, because as I said, these are things that have happened. My interpretation of what has happened, you mentioned Shiva. My father put a case against the entire band. Yeah, they didn't perform. So that's the truth. Great band. I loved him. So the son loves the band. The father says, what nonsense. We've called them to perform. These guys have just said that my band member is sick. We've had a loss. I'm going to put up a case against them. I remember the band member calling up dad and saying, please, withdraw, etc., etc. So that's it. That's story. That's history. In the end, it is that. Two, why do I, with a lot of self-esteem, I can put it down is because Mother Teresa is someone I've worked with. So remember, she would come to school because her spiritual advisor was from Xavier's. So you land up, whenever you go for a youth camp, you go to her mission station and you pick up the oil that is sent from the US, those biscuits that are like hard as, they're called dog biscuits because they're very hard. You can last for an entire day with one biscuit. You do that, and then you see her not as a saint, but as a woman leader who runs a tight outfit. You can't be goody-goody. I think we spoke yesterday. We can't be goody-goody about these things. Let's say a rickshawala is coming with a man who's completely like collapsed to save his life. And he says, okay, give me 50 rupees. Mother Teresa will say, here's 20 rupees. You start bargaining. She gets really strong. Says, what do you mean? Out. 20 rupees, that's it. So the saint that we know of was a leader. She knew how to run the place because she knew how to, that man who came over there in the rickshaw, in 2 days flat, he looks like a sunflower. He's been given a shave, he's bathed, he looks so bright. When you see all that, which academician will come and ask me? Yeah? Because that's my truth. I've seen it, and that's put in a format. It's not autobiographical, but that part may not be coming into the story, but the experience is taken in different ways. So remember, it's the autograph seeker because I have the autographs of the people who defined the 80s and 90s. So it starts with Amitabh Bachchan, whose autograph is there, fortunately, with Rakesh Sharma, with Mother Teresa, with Clive Lloyd, who I just mentioned. It ends with a Shah Rukh Khan, because remember, Shah Rukh's time came in the...
So give us a little anecdote about, one autograph that, kind of really, sparked on something for you, which might be there in the book, which will interest the readers. Have you narrated?
Great question. Seriously, I mean, let me tell you, these autographs also came in. I believe in the law of attraction. When you like really want something, and everything was going well.
Kainat.
Yeah, absolutely. Puri kainat, aapke saath hai, etc. You are so filmy. Yeah. I would have been in love with you if I went at the right time.
You mentioned Shah Rukh Khan.
Absolutely. Began with Bachchan. So someone said, yeah, you should end with Shah Rukh because somewhere the book ends in the 92, 93 is when that part ends. And Shah Rukh was on the ascent. I wish I could get Shah Rukh's autograph. Incidentally, I was part of the alumni association. I am the alumni association and this event that we conducted. And Shah Rukh was that year's man. And I think the only autograph he gave was to me. Beautifully, very nicely written over there. And the moment his came, I said, okay, the book is ready for printing. Rashmi Menon, Amaryllis, let's just go for it and put it out. So getting all these was wonderful. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
You just made all the women jealous, I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was equally in love.
No, he comes in my dreams every night. Yeah.
Third man, but
Aisa
definitely
But, we are running short of time.
Oh,
yeah.
And I can tell you this, it's a very heartwarming, very interesting session. You made everybody want to be a Bengali right now.
Oh,
So can you clap for them?
thank you, thank you.
And Maitri, so can you clap for them once again, everybody?
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank
Anybody
you.
has any questions, please come over and ask. About Calcutta.
Please ask questions.
This is what you get when you get two Bengalis and a Malayali.
I'm a Malayali who believes the Bengali at heart.
Oh, he speaks better Bangla than me.
Oh, should.
Any questions?
You'll break my heart if you don't ask a question. Yeah.
Please
Somebody
ask
should be kind
questions.
here.
Weren't we just fabulous?
I want to ask Maitri because I think she missed out. I really want to ask her when you wrote, when you asked me the same thing, did you actually go and go to these places, smell, see, feel, and then write your story?
Yeah, so I seem to be hung up on Kolkata, and I seem to be hung up in the 50s and 60s when I wasn't even born. So this book of mine, The Hungryalist, it's downstairs in case anybody, is about a poetry revolution, a real poetry revolution set in the 60s in Kolkata. I had to actually go and recreate scenes. Like there's one scene in the book, where Tridip Mitra, a poet, reads in the Howrah station. So I didn't know how the Howrah station was at that time. So, I thought there would be electric engines, but there were no. I went to the railway, website, and I saw there were no electric engines. And one of the characters comes from Patna to Calcutta. For that, he has to take a train which goes via Delhi and takes 3 days to reach Calcutta. And I had no idea about that. So I had to do all that research. Then I went to Kolkata with a bunch of friends of mine, and we did a little enactment on Howrah station actually, where I put up my friend. I told him to stand up on the bench and read out the poem. So, and he had to wear a dhoti, and his dhoti flying. So all those things, but it was great fun. And a lot of my research came from the kabaddi walas, because a lot of the people of that time, they weren't available obviously to speak to me. So I actually spoke to a lot of the kabaddi walas who gave me those tabloids, those magazines which were available at that time. And that's where I got a lot of research material from. And the conversations I had with them, they were so fabulous. So yeah, all that was so much fun. And a city like Calcutta, it kind of encourages you almost in that sense.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Where people actually come forward and talk to you with so much endearment and love, and relish those conversations. So yeah, that was there. So,
Big thank you to the audience. You guys have been
Thank you
fabulous.
for coming.
Thank